evening, I'm Dr. Fred Rouse, the Real Money Doctor, and it's currently 7 o'clock, right on time actually. Very scary for me. On Wednesday, the 8th of July. July. It's July. Things keep fading quickly. Can't be 20 forever. So I want to do today's daily recap events that affect the way you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. Now the question for today is, how do the kids go back to school? And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. We start every day, as we have been starting since early March when we started doing these, with the COVID current case count, just to see where we're at, because that's the main thing that's really affecting the country at this point in time. There's just no way around it. Everyone's been affected some way, shape, or form. Right now, the U.S. is number one. What a surprise. Okay. Didn't think that was possible, but here we are. U.S. is number one in the world. Okay. First time anyone has hit 3 million cases. And that's what we got right now, over 3 million cases of COVID in the U.S. Okay. That's another 53,000, almost 54,000 since yesterday. Total number of cases that have recovered. Okay. I was talking to a student earlier today on a call, and he said, yeah, he sort of watches, he gets the replays basically of the shows. He doesn't get to watch them live, but he gets the email with it, and he watches the replays, and he wanted to know, how come I don't post the recovered numbers? Is that possible? And yes, it is. So just for him, and I'll probably be doing this every day. I don't have the actual number, but right now I did calculate it out. And basically, of all the total number of cases, of that 3 million cases that have been reported already in the U.S., 31% have actually recovered. Okay, which is not a real thrilling number actually. Okay, but 31% have actually recovered. Okay, okay, just getting little notices here. We're going to kill off a little notice here. Something about my security thing is popping up, wants me to do things, but we're not going to do any of that right now. So, 31% of the people have recovered that have gotten COVID. So that's basically, the number is actually 900 and something thousand or other. Again, basically a third have recovered from the total number of cases, which is not a real thrilling number. The number of deaths right now in the U.S. has peaked over 132,000 for the first time. It's another 792 people that have died since yesterday when we spoke last. New York still has a top spot for the number of cases per state, and right now they're at 389,000, almost 399,000 cases. They've picked up another 692 cases since yesterday. Their deaths right now are at 32,251. That's only 11 people that have died overnight in New York State. That's an amazing number. Not real thrilling if you're one of the 11, or they're part of your family or your coworkers, but all in all, that's a good number for New York State. And again, everybody was busting on New York State originally because, oh, the lockdown is a big fraud, it's a big farce, okay, it's a hoax, you shouldn't be doing all these things. And lo and behold, okay, they've got their numbers down. And other parts of the country is going up big time. Now, California took the number 2 spot, the number highest cases, about a week ago, I believe. And they're right now at 284,000 cases. They picked up another 8,000 cases just since yesterday. 8,000 cases overnight in California. Their deaths right now are 6,577. So they've had 93 people die in their state since yesterday. Not a thrilling number. Florida has got the number 3 spot. They've moved up. California, Florida, and Texas and Arizona have jumped up dramatically this past week. And we'll get to that in just a couple minutes. But Florida's got the number 3 spot. Texas is at number 4. New Jersey has dropped down to number 5 this past week. Illinois remains at number 6. Massachusetts at 7. Arizona is another state out in the Midwest. They've moved up big time. They're at number 8. Georgia has moved up to number 9. Pennsylvania has dropped down to number 10. Now, As coronavirus cases surge across the country, hospitals, nursing homes, and private medical practices are facing a problem that many had really would hope to have been resolved by now. It's a dire shortage of respirators, no masks, isolation gowns, disposable gloves to protect the frontline workers from infection. Now, unlike the crisis that caught a handful of big city hospitals off guard early in March and April, when this, really came to being, especially in New York and New Jersey, they were going absolutely crazy. The soaring demand right now for protective gear is now affecting a broad range of medical facilities across the country. A problem public health experts and major medical associations say could have been avoided if the federal government had embraced a more aggressive approach towards producing and distributing critical supplies in the early days of the pandemic. And in the first month or so, all we did was talk about this. All we did was talk about this. Okay. The president just failed to implement the Defense Production Act. Very adamant about it. And finally, he just, God, it was weeks, absolutely weeks before he relented and just enforced it for ventilators. Nothing else. The testing has been a disaster still. But anyway, doctors at the Memorial Center in Houston who treat COVID-19 patients have been told to reuse single-use N95 respirator masks for up to 15 days before throwing them out. The country's largest organization of registered nurses found in a survey of its members in late June that 85% had been forced to reuse disposable N95 masks while treating COVID patients. Now, in Florida, some hospitals are handing out only loose-fitting surgical masks to workers treating newly admitted patients who may be asymptomatic carriers. Now, the inability to find personal protective equipment, known as PPE, is really starting to impede other critical areas of medicine too. You wouldn't think about it, but it does. Okay. Neurologists, cardiologists, and cancer specialists around the country have been unable to open their offices in recent weeks, leaving many patients without actual care, according to the American Medical Association and the doctors' groups. Now, we have kids living with grapefruit-sized abscesses for over 3 months who can't eat or drink, and there's nothing we can do for them because we can't get PPE. And that was Kay Kennel. He's the chief officer for Lubbock Kids Dental Center, and they serve low-income families in Texas. And they've got a list of 50 children waiting emergency surgery. 50 kids are waiting surgery, emergency surgery, and they can't get it because his doctor's office in Texas can't get PPE. It's just horrible, and given the growing number of infections here, I'm afraid things are going to get worse. That's what he said. Now, in a coronavirus briefing on Wednesday, today actually, Vice President Mike Pence downplayed the shortages, but said the government was preparing to issue new guidance on preservation and reuse of protective gear. PPE, we hear, remains very strong. That's what he said. Obviously, he's either lying or he's uninformed. Again, the frontline workers know what's going on. They don't have the equipment. But the people in DC say, oh, no problems. They have everything they need. Not the case. Not the case. Now, many of these problems from early spring when hospital workers in New York, New Jersey, Michigan, California, and other states first really got hit with the virus, were scrambling to really obtain just really basic protective gear. And the problem's only grown. Now, the United States remains dependent on overseas manufacturers and fly-by-night middlemen who've really jacked up the prices sevenfold among soaring global demand. Now, according to supply chain specialists and public health experts who warn that the problem will actually be intensified as the pandemic spreads. And right now it's spreading big time. A handful of American companies still making protective equipment domestically say that already at maximum capacity. They can't do anything more. The crisis has really invigorated calls for President Trump to invoke the Defense Production Act. And for American manufacturers to step up and help. Now, the presumptive Democratic nominee, Vice President Joe Biden, said this week that he would use that law to boost domestic production of medical gear if he was actually elected. Now, President Trump has absolutely resisted using the federal powers to address the problem, saying back in March, that individual governors should find their own gear because we're not a shipping clerk. So he said, we're not a shipping clerk. There will be tons and tons of one-liners that are going to be written down in history that come from this presidency. It's absolutely amazing. We're not a shipping clerk. Okay. With the national strategic stockpile depleted, states have been left to fund for themselves through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and they've been distributing moderate shipments of gear to nursing homes and long-term care facilities for a while now, but it's just not enough. Now, as the coronavirus has really savaged other parts of the country also, Florida boasted low infection rates, and it seemed to be an ideal location for a nation looking to emerge from isolation. The Republican National Convention moved from Charlotte to Jacksonville. The NBA had a season finale at the Disney Sports Complex near Orlando, and millions packed into once empty beaches. Weeks later, however, here we are now, the Sunshine State has emerged as a coronavirus epicenter. Nearly 1 out of every 100 residents is infected with the virus. Hospital intensive care units are full or filling up, and big-name visitors who chose Florida as their first post-isolation events are now mired in questions and controversies about safety. What a surprise. Now, amid the escalating infections in Florida, once held up by President Trump as a model for how to manage coronavirus, is really faring very poorly right now. Residents worry that the situation will get much worse. Florida is just one of the handful of states whose spiking numbers are driving a major resurgence of the virus in the United States. And again, now right over 3 million cases. As coronavirus cases soar in Florida, Miami struggles to respond. Florida has been a coronavirus hotspot for a while now. COVID-19 cases have been on the rise ever since the state actually reopened back in May, surpassing 100,000 in June 22. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis toeing the Trump line, playing down the growing outbreak in Florida, saying that the expanded testing is responsible for more positive test results, emphasizing that many new infections are among younger people, less likely to experience the worst effects of the coronavirus. Again, you know how I feel about this. And if you haven't noticed, I'm really not trying to make anybody happy. I'm just telling you how I see things. If you like it, that's fine. If not, that's okay too. Okay. But the idea that if you test less, you get fewer cases, that just means you don't know about the cases. They're still there. You just didn't know about them. And that's being very, very evident in the number of the percentage of positive cases that they're getting back right now. So it's not that they're testing more and getting more cases. They're testing more and getting a higher percentage of positive cases back. What a surprise. Now on Tuesday, there were 213,000 new cases in Florida. Okay. The state has tallied a record number of cases over the past week, averaging 87,000 a day. Now, in a sign of intensifying trouble, 52 intensive care units across and more than a third of the state's counties have reached their capacity by Tuesday, according to research data released by the state's Agency for Healthcare Administration. Another 17 hospitals had also run out of regular beds. And in a Tuesday news conference, Governor DeSantis said the state has an abundant capacity. However, this is the same governor has been repeatedly criticized over the state's withholding, absolute withholding of coronavirus hospitalization data on a county-by-county basis. So he's saying that he's got all this capacity, but he refuses to release any information to let you know whether it's true or not. Sound familiar? No. Some nurses at Good Samaritan Medical Beach Center in West Palm Beach have been working for 18-hour shifts instead of the usual 12 hours because of overnight staffing shortages. Now, according to a nurse who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of jeopardizing her job, patients are being treated in an open air, cordoned off area by curtains that's typically used for quick medical consultations. And I've seen this before in the past. Again, I've got basically 15 years working in University Medical Center, level 1 medical center, ICU, CCU, ER, trauma ICU, neonatal ICU, pediatric ICU. I know what happens in hospitals. When they get backed up, they're stacked in the hallways. They're stacked in the hallways. And they're stacked in ER, and the only things in ER are curtains, basically, between the beds. That's all they have. So that's what's going on right now in hospitals. And unless you've ever actually been there and worked there, you don't know how it goes. It's ugly. And when the hospital fills up, the beds, not the stretchers, the ER stretchers that are bad enough in ER hallways, but actual beds are in the hallways on the floors. And they try putting little curtains around them. It's not a pleasant feeling, okay, for staff or for the patients. Now, there's one nurse actually said, we're overfilled and understaffed. It's really bad. Hospital leaders, lawmakers, physicians, epidemiologists, advocates, and others familiar with the state's response said a false sense of security set in when the grim predictions about the virus spread in Florida didn't really come to pass in March and April. And it's, again, happened with the entire country. They weren't swamped in March and April. New York, New Jersey were getting swamped, absolutely swamped, and people are scratching their heads. What's wrong with those people? They're making this up. It's all a hoax. But it was just a matter of time before the first wave hit these other states. It's hit them now. And Governor DeSantis declared a victory back in March and April. Okay, and he went to a news conference with the White House president, and it was great. And the observers said that, right now, the state really failed to prepare for the surge of the virus that they're stuck with right now. And residents, are trying to seek refuge in air-conditioned indoor spaces where the virus is believed to be most easily transmitted. Okay. It's a problem. And again, it's a problem because they didn't get hit all at once. The entire United States did not get hit all at once. It happened on the East Coast and the West Coast. And then as states started to try and reopen under pressure from President Trump, now you get this first surge that's hitting them that they weren't expecting. Record number of cases in most states right now. Now, sports leagues that opted to restart their seasons in Florida because in March and April looked good. Okay. Now say that the state's in worse shape than it was before the pandemic actually began. Many teams are already in this state, and they're facing a growing number of critics who believe that they should just really cancel games. Now, the Republican National Convention, scheduled to take place right now in Jacksonville next month, faces a similar situation about questions of safety. In June, the Republican National Committee announced that it was going to move its convention from Charlotte, to Jacksonville. They moved from Charlotte because the president didn't want anybody wearing masks, and Charlotte was not going to release the regulations on wearing masks because it wasn't healthy. So they said, okay, we'll move to Jacksonville, and they did. Jacksonville's in bad shape right now. But as the cases mount in the city, worries have really started to creep in all over the place. Now, my concern has grown since a week ago, and it's gotten worse, according to a former Jacksonville mayor. Several hundred doctors signed a petition that says the coronavirus needs stronger safety measures. The convention center needs stronger safety measures. Now, a retired anesthesiologist who lives in Jacksonville area said that she hoped that a few dozen doctors would sign this letter when she circulated the letter. Okay. However, within just 3 days, 500 doctors added their names to that letter. 500 doctors added their names, saying they need stricter regulations in the convention center for health reasons. Now, we're really focused on health and well-being of the citizens of our city and state right now. That's still 6 or 7 weeks off, and we're still climbing scarily rapidly. Okay. This is all about people's lives, including the attendees of this event. Now, NBA and Major Soccer League teams also landed in Orlando already. And they were hoping to play in a coronavirus-free bubble. Surprise! A day before resuming their summer tournaments, FC Dallas was sent home after a coach and 10 players tested positive for coronavirus. The same day, Disney Sports Complex that will host the NBA later this month. Okay. Nashville's SC's first game on Wednesday was postponed after 5 players tested positive for the virus, and 4 tests were actually inconclusive. So it could be as many as 9. A Fortune magazine virtual forum on Tuesday with the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, acknowledged that Florida's situation has significantly deteriorated in recent weeks. Disney World has announced that it will begin to allow visitors back into the Magic Kingdom this week, while Disneyland in Anaheim, California, said it's going to remain closed. Now, the Actors Equity Association, a union that represents more than 700 Disney stage managers and actors, has been locked in horns with the amusement park, saying it has failed to provide a coronavirus testing plan that would help prevent performers from passing the coronavirus on to others. This is nothing new. Now, the new high-profile risks threaten to compound the problems Florida is having right now. And it's even worse from the beginning of the pandemic. Now, there have been a rise in cases affecting older Floridians as well as those living in nursing homes and other long-term care facilities. And this is Jeff Johnson. He's the Florida director of the AARP. Now, testing sites across the state are seeing shortages. Not a surprise. And I talked about this yesterday. These shortages are all over the place. Right now, just in Florida, the wait time for results. If you manage to get a test, for waiting for results is as long as 10 days. And that's according to Representative Ted Deutsch. He represents a swath of the coast stretching from Broward County all the way to Palm Beach County. Now, the problem stemmed, he said, from apparent failure to produce a testing plan as required by Congress, or at least to unveil any of its details. What a surprise that the governor's covering up details if he's got anything in place at all. This is pretty typical, and it's sad because you can't make any assessments until you've got information. If you sit on the information, you're not protecting anybody, you're just compounding the problem. What the president's been doing is what Governor DeSantis is doing right now. He's just compounding the problem. You can't sweep it under the rug. People are ending up in your hospitals right now. You can try and cover up some of the numbers, but the hospital staff doesn't lie. The beds are filled. What a surprise. Now, he's been asking for details. Okay, this representative has been asking for details, okay, but he's been rebuffed from the State Department of Health, whose deadline was really extended from June 15th to Friday. Now, amid the array of all the new concerns, teachers across Florida learned that they have to begin preparing their classrooms for an influx of students. Now, in Palm Beach County, a first grade teacher, Cara Colon, who teaches at Coral Reef Elementary School west of Lake Worth Beach, said that messages coming from the state are frightening and confusing. The science is going in one direction, and the conditions are getting worse, and the politicians are going in the opposite direction. It's what she had to say. I can't wrap my head around it. If it was safe for us, when there were 100 cases, heck, it'd be safe for us now with over 1,000 cases. I don't get it. I don't get the logic. That's what she said. I've spoken to a lot of my teacher friends, and a lot of them just don't want to go back. We love our students, we miss them, and we love our jobs, but we just don't feel safe. And that really brings me to the question for the day. How do kids go back to school? How do I actually go back to school at all? Now, the CDC issued guidelines on how to reopen schools. And then today, President Trump and his administration officials pushed for a full reopening of U.S. schools in the fall, saying that the CDC guidelines were too restrictive. Of course, they stopped short of providing any real detailed plans on how to return students safely to the classroom, as the coronavirus pandemic just worsens across the board here. Now, it's important to note, though, that the opening of schools is totally under the purview of states' authorities. But a lack of authority or law has never really stopped the president before, and he's quickly indicated that the new stimulus bill would have strong incentives to encourage schools to open. In plain language, what that means is, if you don't open, we're going to cut your federal funding. And that was pretty made clear with Vice President Pence and Betsy DeVos today. If you don't open, they're going to try cutting your funding. So if you stop and remember, okay, way back when, the CDC also issued guidelines on how to reopen the economy. Back in March, remember how to open our economy. Okay. And the president actually came on and said what those guidelines were. One day he actually said what those guidelines were. Okay. Decreasing case count for 7 days. And then the next day, he went and he opposed the guidelines, and he's pushing states to reopen. Okay. Liberate, this state, liberate that state, basically inciting riots almost. Okay. And now here we are. Okay. We're seeing the results of all the states that were first to push to reopen, and now what's happening with those states. The largest record surges in cases. The largest number that across the United States they've seen right now. Any guess what's going to happen when they push to reopen schools? Just a guess. Now, why is that really a concern to you? Again, outside of the fact that kids need socialization, and they do that with their students, if kids are at home, then someone needs to be at home to watch them. Most family requires both spouses to work just to meet the basic bills for the family, keep the family going. So keeping a child home immediately cuts one salary from a two-salary income, from household income. Now, if you're raising a child on your own, it's even worse, because you've got the only salary, you have nobody else to back you up there. Now, daycare and childcare, if you can find them, are exceptionally expensive, especially now. They're expensive before, but now they're only opening with half or a quarter of their people, okay, allowed in. It's hard to get those spots. Now what happens? Enter the grandparents. What a surprise. Okay. However, many grandparents are also in the same circumstances. They're two earner income dependent households. All the while, they're trying desperately to save for their own retirement. So yes, it's important for the kids to go to school, but how? Kids are being affected by COVID in ways that they're just starting to realize as they develop various other syndromes. And you saw this with kids in Chicago. Exposed to COVID, and strange things were happening. They haven't tracked this all down yet. This is still a moving target, folks. Lots happening. Now, maybe the kids won't get sick at all. Maybe they'll just end up being carriers. Okay? Well, what about the teachers, the staff, the administration? Okay? Will they get infected? If the schools are not safe, what happens? The kids become carriers, and then they go home. They go home to who? The parents and the grandparents. What a surprise. This new normal of masks and social distancing is going to be around for a while. Definitely into the fall and start of the new school year, if and whenever that actually happens. I don't know what's going to end up looking like. The first 6 months of this year have financially impacted everyone in one way or another. However, the clock keeps ticking every day. We get a day older. And if you're 50 plus, you already know that you don't want to be doing this forever. It's getting old. It was old last year, okay, when things were going normally. It's really old now. You just don't want to be doing this. Now, you also know that you've been doing whatever you've been doing up to this point, that it's already made you so that you're not 100% certain that you're going to be ready for your eventual retirement. You knew that last year before things got bad. When things were moving along nicely back in early 2019, even then you thought, I'm not exactly ready. I'm pretty certain, but I'm not 100% certain. Enter 6 months of COVID. Okay, you're definitely certain that you're not ready. You're not asking for much, though. You're really not. Okay, maybe just a minimum level of respect for what you do and what you've already accomplished so far in your life. That would be nice. You want to be able to take care of your friends and family and actually be able to retire with some dignity and not have to worry about, whether you're going to run out of money 10 to 15 years before you actually die. So how's that actually going to be possible? It's really up to each and every one of us to determine how that's going to work for us. We can really change the outcome by making decisions and taking actions that you can do today. And if you take those actions consistently in the foreseeable future going forward, then you have a real good chance of affecting what the outcome is going to be. If what you've done so far has gotten you to where you are today, and you're not happy with where you're at, then do something different tomorrow to change your tomorrow. It's that simple. It really is. Now, I'm Dr. Fred Rouse. I'm the Real Money Doctor. My only goal is to help you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. I'd like to help you to be able to get control of your life and your money and make your tomorrow better than it is today. And one that will allow you to actually retire, or at least have the option to retire in the next 3 to 5 years with the cash flow you'll actually need to maintain the lifestyle that you'll want and deserve without ever having to really worry about a job or money again. So go to my site, drrousenow.com. Take a look. There's a 12-minute video there. I understand it was a little bit of a problem yesterday. I can get that fixed right now. But take a look at the video. See if it makes sense to you. Let me know. Okay. Schedule a call and we can at least chat and see if I can help you or not. See if it's going to work for you or not. For now, I appreciate spending some time with you tonight. I'll be posting this video tomorrow on my YouTube channel. Like and share the video there. Like and share it. You're on Facebook. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow around 7 o'clock. Thank you.